On the Easy Jazz Spotlight is artist Yosef Gutman Levitt. Here is your host, Stefan Zajkowski.
I'm here today with a humble and yet extremely talented, I would say gifted musician and composer with 8 albums to his credit. I welcome to the show today, Yosef Gutman Levitt.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, you've had an interesting career. We've had the conversation before. We've talked about how you started in piano when you were very young in South Africa. And then at around 11 years old, you sort of jumped onto skateboard. At 16, you switched back to music and you picked up, as you called it, the skateboard of music, playing the bass.
Yeah.
So what's interesting for me is I understand that Weather Report, that music brought you sort of back to music, but what other musical influences kind of drew you back and said, you know what, I really like that, how it makes me feel, how it makes me move. Kind of walk me through that, how you got back into music.
Sure. So I think early on, I had quite a typical young person's experience with piano, which is being taught basic piano skills and not really, I suppose, being mature enough to be able to appreciate how music could be expressive, and piano quickly lost its appeal in favor of more physically enticing opportunities, be it, skateboarding or riding off-road motorbikes around the farm area where I grew up. That process took me into the whole being a kid without the musical burden. Music is it's a commitment. It's something that one has to sit and spend a lot of time by himself, doing and practicing and figuring out. And I think at the age of 16, there's a Hebrew term called tikkun, which really means to fix, but it has a particular meaning in terms of when one completes a particular phase in their life. I've done my tikkun. I've taken care of that sort of silo or that area of my experience, and now I'm ready to move on. So at the age of 16, my youthful explorations had come to an end, and I was ready to jump back into music with the bass guitar. And at that age, grew up on a farm area, as I sort of briefly mentioned before, where I was the only white kid in school. And in South Africa at that time, we were freshly out of apartheid, and Nelson Mandela had been released from prison.
Mm-hmm.
And though my farm was a little bit isolated, it was a little bit of in a bubble. So the school that I went to could have been one of the officially first multiracial schools in the country, allowed that factor to exist. And the advantage of that, just to cut a long story short, was really the influence of African music and African jazz, effectively. Even though a lot of my peers are like any other kids, kind of interested in popular pop culture experience, and
right.
Back then it was the same thing. But my exploration, 16, 17, 18 years old, in African jazz took me into all sorts of weird places in Southern Africa, especially when you're playing with African jazz musicians, you can get into kind of very, very weird situations. Jazz in general, poverty is something that comes hand in hand sometimes with being a jazz musician, particularly in the beginning years, until one really makes their way over the tipping point.
Mm-hmm.
And in South Africa, that's also true, probably even more so, where the economics of living in Africa are certainly a little different to the economics of living in a first world country like the US or the UK. That being said, I was blessed to have built a lot of character and also musical vocabulary in the African jazz space. And funnily enough, part of the character was built with Weather Report and that kind of exploratory jazz fusion, where technical abilities of the friends at Weather Report, Wayne Shorter and Joe Zawinul and Jacko Pastorius, etc., were very enticing, very amusing, very interesting. Again, I think after that 4-year period, I had done my tikkun. I had done my time. I had paid my dues. I think I felt, at least, in the South African space, and that's what sort of drew me over to Berkeley Music School in Boston, where that was really the next phase of my development.
So from Berkeley, you went through school, you did a lot of work in music, and then at some point in time, you kind of went, you know what's this all about? You had a sort of a question in your mind. Why am I doing this, this music thing? And you walked away. What was that final answer of why am I doing this?
When I asked myself the question around what is the meaning of jazz, what is the meaning of improvising, what is the meaning of playing music at darkly lit jazz clubs in New York City, is it just for me to satisfy some sort of desire to express myself, or is there something greater? Am I able to contribute something actually meaningful to the world? And back when I asked myself the question, I think I didn't have the answer. Therefore, I concluded that it was just all for me, and that wasn't a satisfactory way that I wanted to live my life. I wanted to live a life of bringing something of meaning to the world. I found after Berkeley, after working hard and after spending a lot of time with a very special guitarist and influential musical luminary, Lionel Luecki, a wonderful guitar player. I think he's just coming out with an album with Dave Holland, a duet album with Dave Holland. Beautiful, beautiful musician. We moved to New York at the same time after Boston and Berkeley, and my process was very rich in New York. I was working hard as a busboy. I was cleaning food that didn't make it to people's mouths for a couple of years, and I really thought that was going to be my life, playing music 1 or 2 days a week and clearing food away from tables in Soho in New York. So I was on my way on the train, and I decided that music has lost meaning meaning and purpose for me, and put my bass guitar away. I started to find creativity elsewhere, in software. I taught myself how to program and found a lot of creativity in software, just another tool of expression.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, after a number of years, I met a very refined person, very, very refined, wise person, who I asked them as a challenge almost, I've been doing software for the last decade, what am I here for? Why did God create me? What am I meant to be doing in this world? And he made a face at me and he said, music, you got to be doing music. And I thought to myself, well, that's funny, because I have a bit of a background in music, and at that point, having not touched an instrument for a good decade, it was a little bit out of sight and out of mind. But I took it seriously. At that point, my technology company that I created from nothing, that somehow, I have no idea how, but it ascended into being something, became part of a larger company. And I moved on and picked up the bass guitar. Actually had a bass guitar made by a guy called Harvey Citron, who's a wonderful, wonderful luthier in New York. He makes the bass guitars for Steve Swallow. He's a very, very beloved bass player, luminary as well of mine, and got this funny bass guitar that I wanted with a sort of higher tuning, almost like a piccolo tuning. Well, that's how I tune it. It's the acoustic, giant, big, fat body with a beautiful, ringy, deep acoustic sound. And that's my sound. Now my new life is music again, and I've got to figure out where I'm going to start, because when I left music, also I sought my Jewish roots again, to find them, to find out who I was, and to try to find the best way to live, the best way to be, the best way to be to others vis-a-vis myself, who I was. And that really was a big challenge in terms of music, because in terms of being a practicing observant Jew, what is my musical identity? If I was like a person of the world living in New York City, I was free. I can play any music that I want. But in terms of being true to my culture, like, where am I going to find this music? Like, what is Jewish music? Is it this like European klezmer stuff? Is it honky tonk stuff that I hear like in the sort of mainstream Jewish cultural sphere? Is it Middle Eastern? I mean, I'm from South Africa. I love playing African jazz. So it's not really like Yemenite or Moroccan or Andalusian. Like, what the heck am I going to do? Like, where am I going to start? So let's start with trying to explore Moroccan, Yemenite stuff. Let's try to see where that fits into the picture. And let's try include cultural nuances and interest from different versions and iterations of Jewish existence over the last couple of thousand years. Every album of mine is an exploration, and it's seeking, it's trying to find something, and it's certainly being in the moment with those musical presentations, each song trying to be a story, trying to be a journey, using colors and nuances and details from all sorts of different worlds and cultures. But it's trying to figure out, what is this Jewish music that I'm trying to make, without being Jewish in the sense of like trying to present anything, but rather just trying to find what is my soul trying to express in the world. And that leads to the weird mishmash of some of the stuff that we hear in the progression of the albums.
As we talked before, you said that you like to sort of back away your own playing from the music. You don't play a bass like a bass. You play it like it's a guitar. I've listened on Wedding Song. I've watched and listened to you play, and it's as though you are playing a guitar. You're not playing a bass the way bass players would play. Although when you listen to Soul Song, which we'll be listening to later in the interview, Soul Song, you're playing a stand-up, an actual, the acoustic bass, as opposed to, like the electric or that other kind of acoustic bass. And it's that classical bass sound there. You hear it. You hear the reverb. You're almost, I wouldn't call it a breathing. It's more like your heartbeat. And when you watch you play, it's like you're kind of kickstarting your heart. Okay, let's go. Let's get that going. Let's get it.
Yeah, I'm able to focus on putting my soul into a single note over there, whereas the higher instrument, my soul goes into melody work over there. But on the contrabass, I get to invest soul in a single note, because the instrument itself has so much color and depth in each of those notes.
But you play emotionally. When I watch you play, when I listen to you play, I actually listen for your piece, because your quartet, the people that you play with, play so well, and you can get lost in all of the melodies. But when I'm listening for the purposes of an interview, I listen to the player, the person I'm going to be speaking to. And you're playing, as I say, when I watch you, when I listen to you, and I'd love to see you play live, because you get lost in it. It's not like you're thinking in your head, okay, these are the notes I'm going to play, and now I'm going to play it very technically. I've got it. I'm following along. I've got the beat. I've got the rhythm. I'm going. You play as though there's a voice speaking through you, through your fingers, and you close your eyes and just let it take over. And you watch your head sometimes go back, you drift off, you come down. You're encouraging the mechanism through which you are expressing your soul with your fingers. And I watch it, and it's mesmerizing. I listen to it, and you can hear it as though perfectly timed. There's no mechanics to it. It's a natural rhythm, like listening to a waterfall. You hear each little drip of water, but they all come together and make that cascading sound that's so natural, so perfect. You do that with music, and it's phenomenal to watch and to listen to.
From your mouth to God's ears, I really hope that I'm able to live up to that. What I can say is that what I'm feeling inside in the process of my playing is a certain type of detachment from the mechanics, from mechanics. I I try to stay out of the way of the music as much as possible. It's kind of like raising a child, kind of like you staying out of the way has a lot of virtue as a parent. Steering clear of even the best parenting, there's no guarantees that the kid's going to turn out like like you want. And in the worst parenting, there's no guarantees that you're gonna mess your kid up. So I think that I'm very cautious to. It also helps playing with really good players. I think when you're in good company, staying out of the way can be a virtue. There's a there's a beautiful Jewish phrase that says "siag lechochma shtika." Like if you want to keep wisdom safe, just be quiet. If you want to keep your the if you want to keep if you want to stay smart, just be quiet. And the beautiful thing also that one of the sort of the modern sort of great amazing Jewish thinkers said that like every time that I was quiet, every time in my life that I was quiet, I never regretted it afterwards. There was never a time I regretted being silent, in other words. So I try to take that seriously into the playing and allow space. My time and my time as a player, as a bass player needs to have good time. A bass player needs to lock in with a drummer. A bass player needs to set a solid foundation, play strong, repetitive motifs that everybody can rely on and lean on. The problem with me is that I don't have metronomic time. My time is buoyant and a little bit. I would call it buoyant. So therefore, I wasn't really called for any of the funk gigs or any of the other sort of pocket bass gigs. And most bass players have better time than I do. What I try to do is hear where a note needs to fall, and I try to catch it. When I listen to Charlie Hayden, I hear a perfection of what you were commenting, something that sits and falls exactly in the right place, blends in and fits perfectly. I think Charlie Hayden is really a stunning example of somebody who really meets that beautiful description that you shared of but in terms of my own music and any other musicians listening, what helps me get to a good place of refinement is listening to other people while I play and trying to stay out of their way as much as humanly possible.
Said that you went to school and then you went to New York with Lionel, and Lionel's part of your quartet in and on a few of your albums.
Yeah.
And I listened to him play, and I listened to you play with him, and Omri and Offrey on your drums. They play so well together, and you play so well with them. It's like you've always been together. And I mean, going all the way back to your school days with Lionel, probably there is a natural synergy that's been created with the way
those
you guys
are
play.
just such magical people with such big personalities, incredible humanity. It's really the humanity in the room. There's a lot of brokenheartedness. There's a lot of openness. There's a lot of vulnerability, and all of those things contribute to making great music. The more vulnerable the music is, the more one allows their heart to be open and feeling love and feeling companionship and feeling broken sometimes with the ones that you're in the room with. And that album is recorded. We're all together in the room. There's no desire to show off. There's no desire to please a label. There's no desire to please a producer. There's no need to prove anything. And that all comes together when you're playing with players that play on that level, really, really high level of performance. You get to make music. It's crazy. It's amazing.
And you say that, you're not a perfectionist, that, you try to find the place where the note should fall.
As a musician, we are trained to try to find perfection and try to execute things well. But again, strong lessons learned from musicians like Gary Peacock and Ralph Towner, just masters of imperfection, masters of flight in musical expression. That's the way to go. It's just such a marvelous opportunity, and it's something that I love listening to.
A quote, and this is from an individual who is, I guess, listening to your music, Jeff Crow, said, "Spiritual improvisation." And for me, that it says so many things about your music, in the sense that it's soulful, that with the spiritual element, it is coming from a greater place. The improvisation is obvious, that it doesn't sound like it's been structured. It doesn't sound commanding. It doesn't sound like it's going to take over your ear. It's this very subtle, I'm just going to do this, and this is just coming naturally, and we'll go as we go, and when the song ends, it ends, and that's how it plays. And to say something that nice in 2 words, the Michael Tolan said that it's sincere and almost sublime beauty, your music. And when you, just small quotes like that, speak to the natural, as you say, perfect imperfection of your music, that it's not this structured, beautifully structured, perfect sound. It is this sublime, subtly possibly flawed, but nothing that I've heard sounds flawed. It sounds natural. It sounds organic. And that's where people, when they hear music, they can grab onto it. Like you say, that willingness to be open, that willingness to sort of allow whatever happens.
It's a very beautiful observation. I think that music that comes from a deep place, music, it says in sort of the Jewish Hasidic literature that words are the quill of the heart and music is the quill of the soul. When you're writing, when you're using this quill, and if it's the quill of the soul, like what is the soul yearning for? What's the soul trying to figure out? What does the soul want? The soul wants to do its work in this world. It doesn't want to be taken over by the arrogance of the body and the arrogance of the self, whatever, for lack of a better word, the ego. And obviously everybody, one has to make music with a little bit of ego, otherwise nothing moves and nothing can be expressed, and it's not exciting. But in terms of trying to find that musical place to play from, playing music from a place where you're seeking connection with others, and that connection is full of love, and that connection is full of compassion, and it might sound a little bit kind of fluffy, but it's true. It's not made in order to dominate or to control and to present, and it's not to prove, and it's not to self-aggrandize. The music is to try to express beautiful melodies with good sound. And don't get me wrong, like I do my fair share of analysis and polish, trying to make sure that what I'm trying to express is as articulate as possible. But in terms of its goal, the goal is really to be the quill of the soul, and it's an attempt. Every album and every bit of music that I play is an attempt. I'm not reaching any of the goals yet, but it's an attempt to try to hit something, and sometimes I touch it and sometimes I lose it, but it's kind of like that when I say touching, it's kind of like holding onto the ceiling, where you can kind of hold it, but you can't hold it because there's nothing to grab onto. So it's like reaching for, but never being able to really touch. And it's comforting to listen to music like that. And, obviously I want to try to make music that I myself enjoy listening to, because if I enjoy it, chances are maybe, somebody else might. And that's the general process, I suppose, of making spiritual improvisation. It's looking at who you are and then stripping away everything that doesn't belong and playing it. And it's funny that even if 1 or 2 notes get out there without fancy patterns, without fancy vocabulary, without anything, it's funny how much of the musician can be contained in a very simple expression or a very small amount of notes, if one just gives themselves over to the aspect that somebody might not think that you're a burning jazz player or that you're an amazing technician on the instrument, but the effects are positive, and good music tends to come out more freely that way.
For me, going through your album list, I'm very much looking for more of what you're doing and possibly an exploration. So you were talking about looking at your heritage, and I know from our previous conversation, there's a possibility you're going to be moving in that direction of looking at historical, cultural music and embedding that within yours to sort of express your inner self, your roots, your whole growth through the music that you're going to produce. So I'm looking forward to something new. I understand you have something coming.
Yeah, we have releases coming out. One is actually coming out tomorrow with a musician called Peter Broderick. He lives in Ireland, but he's a fairly well-known musician in the folk neoclassical space. It's an interesting album with sort of compositional works that I did with him here in Jerusalem. And there's a lot of exploration there. The album is more in the ambient compositional side of things, so it's not as exciting per se as Chabad al Azman, my first album.
Mm-hmm.
But there's an album coming up with Yonatan Avishai in early next year, which has a lot more of that punch, that the excitement of Comanche and oud and ney and the various Middle Eastern influences. And while Chabad al Azman was a little bit more, say, general Middle Eastern, I think Chabad al Azman, this next album in early next year, will be more a beautiful bouncy Western interpretation of Yemenite music with Yonatan Avishai, who actually has, he's partially Yemenite. He's on the ECM record label. He's a very wonderful jazz pianist. And right now, I'm really thinking up my next project that's going to be much more bouncy, just to try to put like a totally energetic spin and to see where that takes me. Yeah, so that nothing should be the same. No album should be a carbon copy of the other, and it also forcing me out of my patterns and out of my comfort zone.
So your soul is desiring to express sort of a happy, more bouncy, more I don't know, cultural,
entertaining.
Yes.
I feel like I spiritual music can very easily be again self-nourishing and also nourishing to the world, but in terms of thinking as an entertainer as well, is also a necessary part of giving to the world, of being there for a listener and being an entertainer, not from a shallow place or a superficial place, but being an entertainer from the perspective of gifting the audience with delight, gifting the audience with stimulation and dance is also a meaningful part of musical expression. It's not all about the artist, and it's not all about my expression. It's also about providing a service, providing utility as well as a musician. That doesn't have to be in every album, but it's it's something that I feel like I'm lacking. So I'm going to try to add that into the repertoire.
The thing is, even though you say this, it's not about yourself, I have a sneaking suspicion as you get into it, as you start playing with the other artists that are working with you, you'll find that you'll gain joy. You'll gain that happy place. Your soul will say, I've been just waiting to bounce with this, and you'll see it in your expression. I want to watch videos of you playing this music because I see you get wrapped up in the music that you're playing. And if you're playing something that's soulful and bouncy and cultural and happy, I'll see a smile from ear to ear. I'll see you, your eyes will be shut and you'll be lost in the music and your head will go back, but you'll have a smile from ear to ear and you'll be bouncing with the bass. So whether I listen to your music so that I've got it in my head as I speak with you. And I did that again today. I was listening to your albums as I was preparing a couple of more notes, and I just get lost in it. I get caught up in it. So to hear what's coming up next, I can already start to hear how you're going to play that through, how it's going to sound. I'm curious to know what your instrument of choice will be, because
Probably my bass guitar, and then I fill in the contrabass where the bass guitar doesn't belong. So usually, yeah, every piece that gets composed and arranged, there's a moment of consideration before the session, and we try stuff. Sometimes it doesn't work, and sometimes we switch instruments, and sometimes we do things again, and until it sounds like it belongs, until it sounds like it's it's correct and honest.
well, you have to challenge yourself. Sometimes some music requires you to step way outside your comfort zone and
I
pick
was
something.
looking at, yeah, I was considering exploring different sounds of the bass guitar. Right now I'm thinking how to generate a range of different textures and colors from the same instrument that I've been playing, and very comfortable with my sound. But it's time to break beyond. I was thinking, like, what would Bill Frisell do with my instrument? What would Bill Frisell do with my situation right now?
Hmm.
He uses effects in such a masterful way. Can I do that? Am I brave enough? Will it sound good on a bass guitar? Like, how can I explore sound more? These are my thoughts right now, in this sort of phase of my existence.
It's like you want to just all of a sudden, okay, we're done with the interview. I've just thought of something I want to try out on my bass. It would be really interesting if you suddenly just grab your bass and you pulled it up and you played something and you go, this is perfect.
I would love that. I even thinking about that, like, okay, my process, like, I go home and, I've got a bunch of girls. My house is, there's 10 people in my house. I have eight, thank God, 8 kids, 6 girls and 2 boys.
Wow.
So I got, and they're all from age 2 to age 16.
You do know that your family is an album. You have eight children.
Yeah.
That's 8 songs. Each one is unique. I'm sure each one of your children are unique and have a sound that's in your head already that you hear every time you see them, your wife and you. So there's 10 songs in an
There's
album.
10,
There's your
10,
album, and
yeah.
it's family, and that's what it is, and it's how you see them. And then if you want, you can just say family. Your 11th song, the B-side is family, and it's how your family interacts. And it can be chaos if you want, because your soul just goes, ah.
Amazing. That's an amazing idea. Yeah, I have. That's a really cool idea. It's a really cool idea.
Sorry to throw more projects at you like
Oh,
that, but
it's great. Yeah, I'm always looking for creative things to pin compositions on and to starting points. And yeah, that's great.
so a twist in the conversation. Do you only do recording, or have you ever played live events? I mean, I've seen a recording where you've got some people sitting on stairs and sitting in some chairs.
No, exactly. It's in the recording studio. That's actually the studio where all my albums are recorded.
Ah, okay.
I'm actually sitting in the control room right now, of the studio. On the my right is this is the window. I mean, the lights are off, so it's all dark in there. But yeah, it's I do need to start performing live. Touring in Europe is a interesting endeavor because it means that everybody comes with me. My family really doesn't like it when I go away for very long. So that's 10 plane tickets. And no jazz festival wants me to come and play there because it's an expensive endeavor. But I was thinking about, in any case, really focusing, maybe the later part of this year or really 2025 on touring in the US and in Europe. And it's absolutely necessary for me, and it's something that I'm greatly missing in my life. I'm hiding in the studio far too much, and my live performance is a huge part of my love and my passion. So that's definitely my next step.
Okay. So what's the largest venue you've played to date? The largest number of people that you've played with or for?
I played but before I stopped playing, I was playing more actively live. When I was like in my early 20s, I played at the North Sea Jazz Festival with Lionel Uweke. That
Okay.
was fun. That was a few thousand people. That was really memorable and awesome. But really, the majority of my playing is not large venues. It's really small, intimate venues. Whether it's jazz venues in New York, where in my previous existence, that's where it was at. And then since I came back to music, my life has been really producing and existing in the studio, creating compositions, finding great players, recording, getting back to my life and my family and my various other interests. And yeah, right now it's primarily if I have concerts, they're over here in the studio where I can fit about 45 people, and it's set up for live concerts, and I can record them as well. But I've got to get out. Yeah, it's definitely my comfort zone, and it's not a good thing.
How is your reaction to people that approach you after you played a gig and they absolutely love your music? They're fawning all over, like, oh my goodness, this was the best thing I'd ever heard. How do you react to that? How do you react to fans?
I switch off if they're saying anything nice. I, I know where I'm at, and I know where I need to get, and I know I know. Well, I feel like I know. At least my wife sort of she's pretty complimentary about the music, but I know what my weaknesses are and I know where I've got to go. So if somebody enjoys the music, I'm so happy. I'm overjoyed because my music is fulfilling its job. Just like if you made an electricity company and somebody said how much they like the lights in their house, like your job is working. The electricity is flowing from you to their house, but it's not personal. It's because the work that you did is meeting the objective. But I can't take credit for that. I flapped my hands about and made this music, and it turned out okay, and somebody's listening to it, and it sounds good. It sounds, it sounds good, but there's a lot more to go, and there's a long way to go. So when somebody compliments the music, I deeply appreciate that they enjoy the music. I'm so happy that it's being enjoyed, but there's a little switch. I kind of turn off the personal credit thing, and whoops, it goes off. And then when the compliment's finished, I turn myself, I turn it back on. I mean, with a lot of sweetness and love, but I'm always careful not to ingest personal accolades or anything for the music, because it doesn't do me. It makes me happy because, as I said, the music's hitting its goal. But yeah, I know how much I have to do. So I don't want to get deluded into thinking that I'm okay.
That sounds like an inner voice thing. That sounds, I mean, when you described your playing as I flap my hands around, I had listen,
We all
all right.
flap our hands around and there's no guarantee that anything we're going to do is going to be successful. We try stuff. I mean, everybody's had really good attempts at doing something that should work out and it just doesn't,
Mhm.
like whether it's in business or whether it's in a personal life or in a relationship or with a child or with a friend or a spouse, whatever, you try these things. And I kind of consider that flapping my hands about, because at the end of the day, that's all we can do. We can just flap our hands about and try to do it obviously with wisdom and with thoughtfulness and with consideration and detail.
Mhm.
But because there's no guarantee that it's going to yield our imagined goal, that I know that all I can do is my best. All I can do is my best, but I can't guarantee any outcomes. And therefore, I call it flapping my hands about. So yeah, like flapping my hands about is just a sort of sweet, self-defeating way of just minimizing. It's minimizing the physical contribution. The soul expression is timeless. That is perfect. If the, but at the end of it, I can't control anything. I can't. You should see how many things can go wrong in a recording. I mean, you have no idea how many things can go wrong. It just can be an off day. The players don't show up on time. The computer breaks down. It doesn't work. The microphone sounds weird. The drummer's playing too loud. I mean, there's an endless number of factors that can go wrong, and many times do go wrong.
Mhm.
and it feels a little bit like flapping, flapping sometimes. Like it's not perfect. It's a very imperfect process.
But that's the art within the music is the fact that it is imperfect, that things can go wrong, but in the end you come with a result. And I would say to you, don't ever have expectations for anything that you do. Always just do it with the best intentions, with the best effort.
Totally.
I do my best. Best intentions put forward. This is my soul speaking. I haven't put a mute on it. I'm just letting it express itself, and then whatever happens, happens. And as you say, flap your wings, but only flap it in a bye-bye, see you. Hope you have fun out there in the world.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, that's beautiful. The funny thing is sometimes when we're creating, we don't see our soul in that moment because it's sometimes it's a bit of a darker space in the creation itself. It's dark because we can't see the expression. Like I can't hear my soul coming out when I'm making it. I can only reflect upon it later and say, yeah, okay, something got expressed over there. But in the making, it's dark because at the end of the day, like we're people. And when we're creating something, we're uncertain. It's not clear. Nothing's clear. It's just this sort of, but
Yeah.
in the process, it's yeah.
You're obfuscated by the fact that you're a human being with a complex soul, right? So when you're in the process of creation, there are aspects of yourself that are kicking up the doorway going, hey, can I say something? What about me? What about me? What about me? And you're
Exactly,
attempting
totally.
to express a very focused piece of yourself. And like you say, until you get to the end and you listen to the entire composition, do you say, I captured that piece that I was trying to push out. I captured that essence of the soul that I wanted to express in this one piece. Or you listen to it and you go, oh, he kicked in and he kicked in and he kicked in. And oh my word, this is a really busy song. Oh, I'm going to have to clean this up a bit.
We often we do that, and that can happen when just often the composition is a vector. I don't know what's going to come out. The composition is an opportunity to express something. So I'm not actually hearing the finished product in the composition. I'm hearing a composite of melody and harmony. So I know that the melody works and the harmony works. And then we play it. I don't know how it's going to come out. I don't know what level of emotion the guitar player is going to. I don't even know if he's going to be playing the melody or this guy's going to be playing the melody or I'm going to be playing the melody or I'm going to be playing this. I have no idea what's going to be. We try a few things. We see what works, what doesn't work. And eventually something comes out. And if it sounds too busy, it gets deleted and we try again. And if that sounds too busy, then they'll either get edited or another attempt or skipped over and just thrown into the trash and just we move on because there's a lot of pieces of music that also get thrown out. And I try to just keep stuff that flows and works, and I work very, very quickly. Before an album, I spend about along with a arranger, composer, colleague of mine, Gilad, we'll start creating the music for an album about 2.5 weeks before the actual recording date, and spend about 3 days composing, no more than that, creating the compositions, trying to get through. I send a number of seeds, so I'm sending a bunch of themes, and then Gilad, I use him so that I don't judge myself, because the moment I start composing, I start judging. So I create raw compositional ideas, and then Gilad takes those and he fuses them together. We work, and then he'll arrange it, and that's a piece. So Gilad works very quickly, and we try to get through about anywhere between, say, 3 and 6 compositions a day.
Wow.
It's a very quick process. It's not so fancy. It's just a very efficient compositional process. See, 2 people need to compose, in my view, because if one person composes, one composition can take days because
Mm-hmm.
of the self-evaluation, the self-judgment. But if 2 people do it, then the one person can create the melodic fodder and the other person can fit it all together, add some harmony, done, next. And then we look at it, and there are things get changed and shifted and deleted and whatever. But that process is really quick. Once you have the creative material, refining it is the fun part. Like, that's the cherry on the top. The hard part is coming up with the creative seeds, the theme, the concept behind the album, the coloration, what's it going to feel like, sound like, what are the references? I use references a lot. I'll find beautiful music. I'll say, let's we'll take these seeds and we'll kind of match it up with this reference. And that gives me a lot of structure.
Right.
But again, it's a very, very quick compositional process. The recordings are done in 2 days and the mix is done in 1 day.
Huh.
And Manfred Eicher, I learned that approach from Manfred Eicher from ECM, the excellent engineer and musical sort of luminary, Manfred Eicher, where his albums are made in 2 days, the ECM albums, and they capture the moment, they capture life, and they capture. A videographer once told me, when you do things quickly, they turn out better. And really, there's something about that, because whenever you overanalyze and you over manicure and you make it too glossy and you make it too refined, it loses its life. The recording date is the inspiration around it, because my inspiration comes in the form of last minute panic. Which is something I saw like an old Calvin and Hobbes, I don't know. But like Calvin says, my inspiration comes in the form of last minute panic. But that's true. It really does come in the form. It's like, I have the recording, now is the time to compose today. And if it's not today, I'm basically screwed. Like there's no option. We're going to create 12 pieces of music today. And that's it, because this is the day we have to arrange and compose.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. Like I say, you listen to your music, it doesn't sound like that. It sounds like you've spent ages putting these pieces together, because they sound so, I mean, the albums sound perfectly blended together, and each piece sounds like it's been hand hewn out of some natural element, to the extent that it's beautiful on its own. It stands on its own. It is a piece of music that expresses something. And for you to say, "Oh, I just did that. Yeah, just picked it out of my pocket, and there it is, a piece of lint, boop, and it's done. Next.
It's hard. No, there's a lot of experience that goes, there's a lot of intensity that goes into the creation process in those two. It's not easy. It's fast and it's good, but it's definitely not cheap.
Well,
Meaning
the expression that I use, my wife, she says, "Can you do this?" And I get it done in like 5 minutes. Bang. She says, you said the way it sounded, you're going to take you hours or days to get this thing done. I said, "Hon, it's not the amount of time it takes for me to do it. It's the years of experience and practice that took me to this point so that I can do it in 5 minutes. The bleeding fingers and everything else that I've done for years and years and years." And I guess in your case, it's the years of putting in the effort and going out on the stages and cleaning plates, and all of that work led to the ability to sit down and crash course, bang, music, bang, music, bang, music. It's not because it's easy. It's because you have all of that background that can drive the machine.
You can recognize, I think that I spent so long being a lousy musician, being a lousy jazz musician. I spent most of my career is spent being a lousy musician. And it's only at some point that I felt, after my big hiatus, that I felt like I had achieved some sort of ability to actually listen to the music and avoid the nasty elements. But being a lousy musician for so long has such an advantage, because you can recognize lousy music really quickly because you're really familiar with it. So therefore, when I'm listening to a composition, or when I'm looking, I can spot the weak points pretty quickly and try to get rid of them as quickly as possible. Also sort of use that in technology management as well. Like, I was a lousy manager for a long time until I became decent in software. But because I became familiar with all the weaknesses, now I can spot weaknesses in other, in other managers, and that kind of helped me work with better and better people.
And coach people to do better as well. You set yourself as the example. I know what crap looks like because I've been crap. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just, you got to really, part of the looking inside, part of the spiritual component that I think is highly advisable for every musician, is the ability to look inside and find the crap, basically, and then throw it out. That is, enough said. Like, it's to find the schmutz and get rid of it. And that is really what spirituality brings into music. It's the ability to find the schmutz and throw it out. And it's a very valuable tool.
Although one would say that sometimes the schmutz is the best part, but you never know. I mean,
exactly, in certain context, yeah, but then it's not schmutz. Then if it has a focus, if it has a purpose, it's not schmutz anymore.
Mm,
Just if it doesn't have a purpose, if it's chaotic, if it's just if you have an intention, and schmutz isn't defined by stuff that is crude or no, not crude wording. I'm saying like just crude in terms of rough.
yeah.
If it's purposeful and if it's intentional, it's not schmutz. It's it's the key. The schmutz is all the stuff that the mind and the ego brings into the music that just does not belong. It doesn't belong. It's just self-serving.
Right.
And if we can get rid of that stuff, then we can make better music.
Well, that's a term that you use. I think it's on one of your albums, Nigunim, which is
Yeah,
the melodies from the heart. That's what you're describing. It's
exactly.
something
Those melodies are already
supernatural.
stripped of all the schmutz. They come pre schmutz, sort of schmutzless. So they're powerful vectors of clean and honest expression.
Yeah, and I mean that's kind of the music that you make, although they are supposed to be melodies without word. Melodies, they're sounds, they're expression with notes or with melodic
Just
tones.
syllables. Yeah.
It's almost like a language without a structure in sense of letters and so forth. They're simply syllabolic.
They're
Those
beyond letters. The concept is that they're beyond words. They're deeper than words. They can reach a place that words cannot reach.
like they say, people will say that they can't express it with words, but then they have this and they can express it with that sound, with these sounds. They can, so
Yeah,
that's what
they
this
can
is.
you can express it with sound. Yeah.
But I found that one of your albums had what's it, Asmer
Azam
Bizbashin.
Vishvachin, yeah,
Bizbashin
that's my
is
attempt
singing.
at words.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
but it's a
that
beautiful song. It's beautiful. And I'm curious as to, are you looking at possibly creating another state of Nigunim where it's with word,
it's
a melodic
necessary.
word
Songs with
Nigunim?
words, they communicate more frontally, and songs without words, they communicate a little bit deeply, but I think both of them have their place. So I do need to explore that more as well.
Is that a place of non-comfort for you, where
It's a place
creating
of,
word with music?
in a sense, it's just because I don't do it very much, and if I did it more, I think it would become more comfortable. The music I hear tends to be instrumental and tends to be melody driven versus word driven.
Have you thought of working with somebody who actually does write for music and see if they can put words to some of the sounds that you have and say, oh, that's perfect. That speaks volumes.
I have thought of that, and I've also thought of challenging myself to turn concepts into poetry and utilize that. It's a very challenging, just looking at very high quality lyricists,
Mhm.
and just seeing how magnificent their words are, and just high quality poets. It's a whole world of expression that is, I do spend some time on it, but my time is so limited that I've got to be very choosy about what I take on as a project.
But I already know just from listening to what you and then hearing how you do it, that you'd probably be able to make those links that you'd read a couple of things and say, that I could probably work with this. And then in a day, you've made a combination, you throw it over to your programmer
Yeah,
individual who
yeah.
looks at it and goes, okay, slam that together. Here it is, a little bit of melody, and now we've got a song.
It might actually work out better that way. Probably some of the best poetry is stuff that's quick and immediate and impulse driven.
And you have this ability to take cultural sound and, even historical cultural sound and apply it to the music that you play. So taking cultural words, cultural poetry, and drive that through your music, that is something I could see you doing. Taking historical literature, historical poetry, and taking that, words of culture, my own culture, and expressing it in music. That's never been done. That the words have never been done musically, and finding the music that actually expresses it better. That I can see you handling because you have that ability, you have that gift. So
I'll try that. I'll that I'll take as a compliment. That I'll because it obligates me to be more. So
It's a challenge. It's a
there
challenge.
my switch remained on. I I really appreciate that. Yeah, I do dream of that. I do consider that. But I think your words of encouragement are I'll take them to heart.
So, on that note, the fact that we've been talking about your music, I'd love for the audience to hear your music, to hear how you take, in a couple of days, create something so beautiful. We're now going to listen to the exquisite and soul-touching music of Yosef Gutman Levitt with Soul Song. Enjoy.
Thank you.
I sincerely want to thank you for being on the show. I really, really appreciated speaking with you both now and previously when we spoke. I'm going to continue listening to your music. I'm going to possibly, if I hear things that I want to challenge you on or think of something that I know is a perfect wheelhouse for you, I'll throw things at you because I know you have a creative soul. And I know that if I throw a challenge at you, you'll probably curse me and then go, yeah, but I could probably do this.
No way. I mean, yes, but I would probably give you a big hug. But,
I definitely want
but
to.
please
I want to
do.
come and see you at some point in time, which probably means I'm going to have to travel to
Well, I'll
find a
travel.
venue
I
where
don't
you're
know,
playing.
but where are you based?
I'm in Ottawa, Canada.
Ah, cool. Okay.
So if you're ever up here, you have to let me know because
Amazing.
I'll definitely come and meet you and the rest of
Oh,
the family, the rest of the nine. So it's Yosef Gutman Levitt and the nine. I'm looking forward to the new album. That you have an album coming out in February. The one that we spoke about. Keep creating, please, because I want to continue listening to your music. It's very much appreciated, and I'll look forward to everything that's coming out from you.
thank you so much. I really appreciate the time.